YouTube, what is good? We are back for another episode of Marvin's Room. Check the deer out. Can you see those deer? You can't see those deer, can you? Probably getting ready to run. Anyway, I wanted to jump on here and make this video with you guys. First, let me tell you, I am offering one-on-ones, so FaceTimes, phone calls, emails, coaching, etc., in person. If I know you and you're around, you're close. In-person meetings, I am offering that, so guys, hit me up if that's something you're looking for. But I wanted to jump on here and make this video about some of the big mistakes that I made when manifesting a specific person back a few years ago. And because I know people always talk about, their successes, but very few people talk about their failures. And I wanted to jump on here and kind of give you guys a rundown and help you guys with some failures that I had when trying to manifest my specific person. Now, one of the big things that I failed on was learning too much and not taking action. I was constantly reading or learning about, law of attraction, new techniques. I'm going on YouTube, I'm trying to watch Abraham Hicks. I'm looking at different law of attraction teachers, reading different books, listening to different audio books, watching different seminars, Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, etc., the top-notch guys in the business. And I realized that for maybe the first 5 years or so, I was doing more learning than actually doing. And I realized I was missing out on taking action. And it wasn't until maybe 2017 or 2018, end of 2017, beginning of 2018, I started taking action. And when I started taking action, that's when I actually started to get results. And I realized the entire time, because I tell people my story, some people say, and they think, wow, you waited around 5 years or whatever the case for your specific person. And it wasn't, no, I didn't wait around for 5 years, like crying in my room, sad at the world. Like, I feel like that's how some people hear it when I tell them my, SP story or whatever the case may be. But it wasn't that. Like, I was focused on my business, I was focused on real estate, and I was just learning and educating myself on how to be better in relationships, etc., and stuff like that. But it wasn't like I was just waiting around, miserable, doing nothing. So I wanted to throw that in there real quick. But something that I did do and I realized was I should have taken action sooner, because I believe that if I had taken action sooner, that I probably would have gotten results a lot sooner. Obviously, I mean, that's like, that just makes sense. If you take action sooner with anything, you're going to get results sooner. So I wanted to share that with you guys, a lot, because I know a lot of you guys are still watching, certain videos or you keep becoming basically inundated with information, and you don't apply that information, So what you have to do is you have to apply the information that you're learning, because listening to this book or listening to that book, yeah, it'll inspire you, but you're not going to necessarily get results because you're not taking action, and action is the big piece. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I did, was for a few years, I didn't take any action, then I started taking action. So another big mistake that I made was I had no one to hold me accountable, and I guess that was kind of intentional, because I didn't want anyone to really know what I was doing. I didn't want anyone's negative energy to be thrown on me. So I guess that was kind of intentional. But now that I look back, I feel like that's something that I probably shouldn't have done. I probably should have had maybe one person that could have held me accountable to say, are you practicing? Are you doing, your daily routines? You know what I'm saying? Are you doing this and doing that? You know what I mean? But I didn't have that. So now looking back on it, I kind of feel like, that's something that I should have most definitely had on my manifestation journey. Another thing I did wrong was I created end scenes that weren't realistic, and I think that's a big problem that a lot of people are also doing, is they're creating end scenes that just won't happen. For instance, like, you go through a bad breakup with someone and it's only been 6 months. You guys haven't had any contact in 6 months, or you guys were only dating for 3 months and you guys haven't had any contact, and you really expect and think like your person is gonna just come back after not hearing from you for 3 months and try to like manifest a marriage or something like that. You know what I mean? And I mean, honestly, just from a common sense standpoint, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I mean, a lot of you guys know realistically, like that's something that definitely wouldn't happen. You know, you guys didn't know each other that long. You know, you were only together for 3 months, 6 months, et cetera, et cetera. I understand you think you love that person and, you know, you think that that person is the one. But at the end of the day, that's something that you really don't know. You really have no idea about. And so I think creating false end scenes was something that I did as well, is because you create these scenes and you think, you know, oh, this person is going to reach back out to you, you know, right away or after a serious situation happened. And I mean, me knowing what I know now, being realistic, it's just not realistic. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just no other way to put it. Like, it's just not realistic. So yeah, so people having unrealistic end scenes. Another big mistake that I made was I did not work on myself. I was learning and I was listening to book after book, seminar after seminar, but I wasn't implementing. And something that I learned from particularly, I would say, Agnes Vivarelli, her channel, she's such a beautiful soul, is I wasn't working on myself. I wasn't doing self-love. And self-love is, now I see self-love is like the biggest key ingredient to why people fail. Self-love is like the biggest reason why people don't manifest what they want to manifest. It's because they have no self-love. And that's what I was doing my end scene. I was doing things like that, but I had no self-love. You know, I had no self-worth. So what I know now is even if my SP came back, you know, she probably would have left again, or we would have gotten to an argument again, or whatever, because I didn't work on myself. And I realize now that fear is rooted in attachment. And that's why so many people are afraid to lose someone. That's why when people die, people are so hurt, is because they don't have no self-love. They don't have self-worth in themselves. And the person that died, they put all of their love, whether it's a parent or a good friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend, the person that died, they put all of their being, you know, their self-worth, they put it into that person. That's why deaths hurt people so much, is because you have no identity outside of that person. And people, they have no identity a lot of times outside of their specific person, you know, their girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife. And that's so dangerous. And that's why I realized, like, self-love was really the key. And that was another big piece that I missed out on, because like I said, again, I kept trying to put icing on a rotten cake. You know what I'm saying? And that's what doing your end scene, that's what's doing your visualizations, your affirmations, that's what that's doing when you have no self-love. When you have no self-love, doing that stuff is what is like basically putting icing on a rotten cake. It looks good on the outside, but everything underneath is messed up on the inside. You know what I mean? And so self-love was a big thing, and working on myself was a big thing. I had to realize and say, holy crap, Marv, you got to do this. You got to work on yourself. And again, that's when you work on yourself, when you fall in love with yourself and you realize you're already whole and you don't need another person to make you whole, you know, that's when you become really free. That's when it becomes liberating, because that's when you're no longer afraid to lose anyone. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's a relationship, whether it's a death, you know what I mean, et cetera, you no longer are really afraid. Yeah, it might hurt, but you realize your worth, et cetera, is not put into that person that's no longer here anymore. And I think that's why a lot of people suffer in relationships, is because they put so much of their self-worth, their being, into their relationship, and then that person leaves and you're like, I don't know what to do. Who am I? I don't know my identity. My identity was that person. You know what I mean? So self-love was another biggie that I failed to do. And like I said, once I started doing it, that's when things happened in 2018, and that's when everything I wanted started to happen. And that's when I manifested the SP back, you know, when I started focusing on self-love. So I think the last two more things. The second to last thing that I did that was a biggie was I kept arguing with my SP, kept replaying situations in my head mentally that had happened, arguing, et cetera, stuff like that. And I realized that was another big mistake of mine, was, you know, continuing to argue in my head with my SP, you know, even though it was years later, thinking about situations, thinking about stuff that I wanted to say that I didn't say, you know, just replaying it mentally, and how much that destroyed the process of manifestation from happening way quicker, because I even though it might have been, say, 2016 or 2017 or 2018, my feelings and thoughts were still in 2013, if that makes sense. And so that was a huge delay on everything that I wanted to happen. And that's another big mistake that I made, as far as manifesting my XP, is I didn't stop those arguments and stop those negative thoughts. I was doing the other stuff. I was doing affirmations. I was living in the end. I was doing self-love, but I still maintained those negative thoughts, those negative scenes in my head. And it wasn't until, like I said, 2018, when I started to revise things and started to do affirmations, et cetera, that's when, things really started to change. Look, there's another deer. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's getting kind of dark out. But yeah, now my number one tip, the number one thing that I did wrong in manifesting a specific person back was I did not manifest my specific person back being changed and being healed. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. When you break up with someone, obviously they were a certain way, whatever that way may be. And in my case, my SP had, anxiety, stuff like that. And I realized that when I manifested her back, I was extremely happy. But a huge mistake that I had made was she showed back up in my life with the same insecurities, the same fears, the same traumas, etc., that she had never dealt with. And I realized that was a huge blow to me. That was a huge blow because I wasn't focused on seeing her mentally healed. I was focused on seeing her. I was just so focused on manifesting her back. I was so focused on, receiving the text message. I was just so focused on so many of the wrong things. And what ended up happening was I ended up getting what I wanted, but it wasn't the way that I wanted it, because now that things have happened, I would have preferred that she came back into my experience being healed. I would have preferred that she came back into my experience being healed from those past traumas or pains or et cetera, dealing with, the issues that she had gone through in her life that she hadn't dealt with. And that, to me, is the biggest mistake that I made. And I realized that's what happens when so many people try to get. They try to get. And they don't realize that, they get so focused on trying to get what they want that they stop thinking about their specific person. They stop thinking about their needs, their well-being. And so now that I know that, I'm always constantly wishing, my SP, blessings and better, and wishing her to get better in her mind and mentally and to heal from whatever past experience, et cetera, et cetera. And this is for everybody. You know what I mean? Because now that I know, this, again, to me, this is the biggest mistake that I made, because I was able to manifest an SP back. But like I said, when I manifested my SP back, nothing had really changed. Everything was pretty much the same from a personality standpoint. You know what I mean? And that shows you the power of, being deliberate with your creation and what you want. Because people think self-love is going to just bring your SP back. Yeah, self-love will bring your SP back. But if you don't radiate love to your specific person and do things like that and see them as being new, see them as mentally being changed, you know what I'm saying? If you don't do that piece, they're going to show back up in your experience, but you're probably going to have the same fights, the same arguments, et cetera, that you had before. I mean, it might not be as bad, but you're probably still going to experience that. You know what I mean? And that's why self-love is extremely important. And that's why focusing on seeing your SP being healed and better is also extremely important. All right, guys, that was my number one mistake. Just wanted to jump on here real quick, share that with you guys. Hope you guys learn from my mistakes and get better, and your manifestations take nowhere near as long as my manifestations took. All right, this has been another episode of Marvin's Room. I'll see you guys real soon. Thanks again for joining me. We out.